Chapter 551. Educate well. Although I am not a star path goo master, if I refine this set of star goo, it would be a huge help in opening the stargate and linking to Hu immortal blessed land. Fang Yuan could not help but feel a bit of joy in his heart. He had invested heavily earlier to nurture a batch of starlight firefly goo in his Hu immortal blessed land. He also got many air bubble fish to increase the starlight firefly goo's growth. But even so, the starlight firefly goo's expenditure was greater than its production. Every time the stargate was opened, large numbers of starlight firefly goo would be used. But to nurture starlight firefly goo, a lot of time was needed. It was easier for Fang Yuan back in northern plains, when he could use the starlight in the sky for one of the two sides of the gate. But in Imperial Court blessed land, there was no starlight in the sky. Thus, to open the stargate, he would needed to expend even more starlight firefly goo. But if he could refine this set of goo that could amplify the power of star path, one starlight firefly would be able to achieve the effects of a few. That way, he would have several times less expenditure than currently. Furthermore, this goo recipe is interesting. The thought process and viewpoint is different from the norm. It is like a deduction done using earth science and math. To think that Poet Immortal was so knowledgeable, having such incredible ideas. Fang Yuan could see a portion of Poet Immortal's wisdom from this goo recipe. Taking all that was valuable in these few rooms, Fang Yuan returned back to where he came from. Du Min Jun was a righteous path goo master. His inheritance was naturally a righteous path inheritance. There was only one trial and was not difficult. When Fang Yuan returned to the mountain peak, the worm group that was troubling everyone had dispersed. Lord Changshan, you are finally back. I wonder what gains Lord had made inside. Pan Ping's expression was ominous as he walked up to Fang Yuan. His intention was obvious. You Wolf King took the meat. You have to at least leave us the soup, right? Ha ha ha. Congrats, Lord Wolf King. With this inheritance, you are like a tiger who gained wings. Zhu Zai cupped his fist and spoke, not mentioning anything related to splitting the gains. Fang Yuan nodded lightly. This inheritance was set by Poet Immortal Du Min Jun. There are still a lot of beautiful treasures left inside. You can go take it. Saying so, he sat on the azure myriad Wolf King and flew into the sky. Pan Ping saw him leaving and immediately shouted, Sir Changshan, we restrained the worm group for you painstakingly, yet you took all the best things inside the inheritance. According to the rules, you have to give us some compensation. Compensation? Fang Yuan stopped his wolf, floating in the air as he looked at this soul blade general with a half-smiling expression. What compensation do you want? Fang Yuan asked. Pan Ping expressionlessly requested, we can't determine what compensation to get yet. Why don't Lord show us the inheritance you obtained, so that we can evaluate it? Fang Yuan laughed, looking at Pan Ping amicably. Look at this compensation, are you happy with it? Saying so, he willed, and the azure wolf group surrounded Pan Ping from the ground and the sky tightly. Pan Ping's expression changed. He held onto his scimitar as he shouted, Lord Wolf King, what are you doing? Fang Yuan sat on the wolf back, looking down at Soul Blade General, snickering. Howl. The azure wolf group moved and charged at Pan Ping. Pan Ping's expression turned into shock as he blocked left and right. Unleashing all his moves, he was a rank 4 peak stage cultivation. After getting much gains in the battles, he had high-quality goo worms that were a complete set. His battle strength far surpassed his previous state. But the azure wolves were not ordinary wolves. Each one was at least 100 beast king. This meant that they each had large numbers of wild goo in them. After Pan Ping killed several azure wolves, he could not hold on anymore, bleeding profusely as he got into a desperate situation. Lord Wolf King, you are too overbearing. We are of the same army. Are you trying to kill me? He shouted loudly, trying to suppress Fang Yuan using righteousness. The other goo masters had no idea what to do. Fang Yuan's overbearing attitude made them uncomfortable. But because of his strength, they did not dare to say anything. Lord Wolf King, please calm down. Pan Ping did not know what was good for him. He verbally insulted Lord. But Lord is such a grand hero. Why is there a need to put yourself at his level? Zhu Zai urged quickly. Pan Ping was He Lu Land's beloved general. It is said that he was already part of He tribe. If he died here, when He Lu Lan pursues the matter, he might not do anything to Changshan, but Zhu Zai would be doomed. Since Zhu Zai joined He tribe alliance army, he naturally wanted to join He tribe. Zhu Zai, you're overthinking this. I am not angry. Fang Yuan smiled at Zhu Zai lightly, but the azure wolves were attacking even more fiercely under his manipulation. Zhu Zai's heart was anxious, but he was secretly shocked by Fang Yuan's ruthlessness. Over there, Pan Ping was in a critical state. He activated Soul Blade Goo but could only defend himself. He could not break out of the wolves' encirclement. Lord Wolf King, please have mercy. Pan Ping is going to die. Zhu Zai showed an expression of fear as he urged once again. Fang Yuan finally stopped his attack, sighing at Zhu Zai. Sigh, I am not violent, but this junior does not know how to respect his seniors. If I do not teach him a lesson today, is he going to dance on my head in the future? Yes, 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 Lord is absolutely right. Zhu Zai quickly answered. Fang Yuan waved his hand, and the Azure Wolves stopped attacking. They moved back, but the encirclement was still present. Without the pressure of the wolves, Pan Ping collapsed on the ground. He was bathed in blood and covered in injuries. He breathed roughly as he stared at Fang Yuan with eyes filled with hatred. Fang Yuan saw his expression and laughed. It seems you have not had enough? Maybe my lesson wasn't severe enough. Zhu Zai, what do you think? Zhu Zai shuddered. He could see the overwhelming killing intent hidden in Fang Yuan's calm gaze. He quickly waved his hand. Enough. It is enough. Pan Ping had received a sufficient lesson. Pan Ping quickly apologized to Lord Wolf King. Pan Ping clenched his fist. He gritted his teeth as he took a few deep breaths, closing his eyes and saying with much pain, Lord Wolf King, I am sorry. He howled in his heart, however. Today's humiliation, I will return it to you 100-fold. Wolf King, remember this. I am not someone you can humiliate as you please. Pan Ping was a vigilant and low-profile person, but after the imperial court contest, the pride in the deep parts of his heart burst out. Especially in the battle against Lu tribe, he was first killed by 3 heads 6 arms, but was revived by Tai by Yunsheng later using man as before Gu. Such a revival process made his nature change slightly, making him feel like he was a person blessed by the heavens. According to the rules, I should be allowed to check the gains from the inheritance. Wolf King, you were too overbearing. You will definitely regret all that you did today. Although you are strong now, it is only because you started cultivating several earlier than me. One day, I will catch up to you, surpass you, and return all this humiliation right back at you. Pan Ping screamed internally. Fang Yuan naturally had no idea what he was thinking, but he was not interested either. If I kill him here, Pei Lu Lan would not pursue the matter with me. But this is a demonic act. It clashes with my identity. Furthermore, it does not benefit my future plans at all. I might as well leave this Pan Ping for the future. Pan Ping only had one soul blade Gu which Fang Yuan had some interest in. If he was killed now, Fang Yuan would probably not receive the Gu. Thus, Fang Yuan said, since you admitted your mistake, that is very good. It means you have noticed my hard work. A junior should behave like a junior. Do you understand now? Understood. Pan Ping shut his eyes. He was furious, but he squeezed out the words. Fang Yuan snickered. He understood his feelings, but he did not expose him, only continuing to say, very good. Since that is the case, compensate me. In order to educate you, I made quite a loss. Look at my wolves. 15 corpses are lying here. What? Pan Ping opened his eyes out of pure rage. What? Are you unwilling? Fang Yuan smiled lightly, looking at Pan Ping with an obvious expression of mockery, like a cat toying with a mouse. I am willing to. Pan Ping breathed in deeply, nodding his head as he accepted his fate. This is the attitude of a junior indeed. Fang Yuan chuckled, smiling gently and kindly. But in everyone's view, he looked extremely scary. It was all thanks to Lord. Zhu Zai was smiling at the side. Of course. Fang Yuan nodded in agreement, smiling as he accepted this hypocritical flattery. He then looked around. What about you guys? Do you need some lessons too? Everyone quickly rejected him with pale expression. They were shuddering, obviously scared out of their wits. Fang Yuan laughed loudly, extorting all of Pan Ping's Gu recipes and several of his Gu worms. Pan Ping was extremely furious. The few Gu that Fang Yuan chose were critical to his Gu set. Without them, his strength would fall by at least 2 levels. After toying around with Pan Ping, Fang Yuan felt the fun turning into boredom as he patted the wolf head, rising into the sky. That will be all. There are still rather good things inside. They are unique. Go ahead and take them. Everyone heard this and were revitalized. Many people thought, Lord Wolf King is truly righteous. It was natural for him to take the bulk of the meat. Lord Pan Ping was simply too small-hearted. Only until Fang Yuan and the Azure Wolf group vanished into the sky did everyone start moving towards the Starlight Door. According to seniority, Zhu Zai and Pan Ping were the first 2 to charge in. The 2 first entered a small courtyard, but only found Du Minjun's original poems. As for goo worms, goo recipes, they were all swept away by Fang Yuan. Not a trace of them were left. Lord Wolf King was right. These are really unique treasures. Zhuzai held the poems in his hand as he laughed bitterly. Pan Ping, who was hopeful and wanted to get some benefits to recoup his losses, had a dark expression. Pooh! Suddenly, he threw up a mouthful of blood as he fainted from anger. Several days later. With my current speed, the sacred palace should be close by. Fang Yuan rode on the azure myriad Wolf King's back, pondering to himself. Soon after, his gaze became fixed at an area on the ground below him. This terrain is so familiar. Don't tell me, Chibi General, he saw a cliff. Chapter 552, Giant Sun Immortal Venerable. Fang Yuan looked at the ground. He saw that there was a mound protruding high up above the ground. There were no forceful contours on the mound. There was an opening on it that showed a huge hole, like a tunnel underground. As for the surroundings of this mound, it was a huge swampy area. There were sparse trees in the swamp. On the southwest side, there was a river. The river water was not clear, but it was a very long river. Both the start and end of the river were beyond Fang Yuan's field of vision. Light in the soil, shine up to 100,000 feet high, swimming in the sky for 100 li. Praising plum fragrant snow. Looking at this scene, Fang Yuan could not help but think of this phrase in his mind. Is this Di Chio inheritance ground? Fang Yuan had a flash of inspiration as he felt dazed. Back then, he had obtained information about Di Chio inheritance from a fake gray-white stone slab. The painting idea grew on the gray-white stone slab etched this map into his brain. Thus, Fang Yuan had a clear memory of it. He could not forget it even if he tried. He flapped his wings and flew around it in the sky, confirming that this terrain was exactly as he remembered. So this is it. I was wondering before. An inheritance using terrain as a clue was not reliable. If this was outside in northern plains, the terrain could be easily changed or destroyed. But an imperial court-blessed land, that would be a different case. Fang Yuan thought. This imperial court-blessed land opened once every 10 years. The victors of the imperial court contest would enter and might change the terrain due to battles. However, when imperial court-blessed land closes, the terrain slowly recovers, until 10 years later. It would reopen after being restored to its original state, Di Chio inheritance, since it was set up inside imperial court-blessed land, and even had an innovative idea of using a fake gray-white stone slab to do it. The owner definitely put in huge effort and time for this. The inheritance should not be bad. With such thoughts, Fang Yuan slowly flew to the mound. After observing the mound's entrance for a while, he summoned several azure wolves and entered the dark hole. 15 minutes later, the azure wolf returned to Fang Yuan unscathed. This deep hole looked pitch black from the outside, but once someone entered, they would realize that it was full of glowing moss. It was not dark at all. There was nothing inside the hole. The air was moist, and there were only rocks and moss. Fang Yuan personally entered to check it out, but still found nothing. He frowned slightly, leaving the place. He was prepared for this result long ago. This inheritance is not simple. If it can easily obtained, others would have gotten it long ago. Of course, I cannot rule out the possibility that someone else got it before me. But Fang Yuan analyzed and realized that the possibility of that was very low. To come here, there are two conditions. One is to obtain the clue to the inheritance and decipher the gray-white stone slab. A Gu master skilled at appraisal is needed to do it. Secondly, they need to enter imperial court-blessed land. That means they need to survive the imperial court contest. Thus, they need to have a keen eye in order to be part of the victors. This inheritance is not simple at all. It seems that to get it, I will need to interpret the cipher. Fang Yuan concluded. Light in the soil, shine up to 100,000 feet high, swimming in the sky for 100 li, praising plum fragrant snow. What was this cipher trying to say? Fang Yuan thought about it, but he got no answers. Even though he had many thoughts, none of them lead to any conclusive ideas. Never mind, I'll leave it at that. There is still some time left inside imperial court-blessed land. Fang Yuan flapped his wings and flew, bringing the wolf group with him towards the blessed land's central sacred palace. That was the most important part of his plan. He spent so much time disguising himself. It was all in order to enter imperial court-blessed land. Obtaining landscape as before Gu was his top priority, but other than that, it was the inheritance of Giant Sun Immortal Venerable inside 88 True Young building, not must him. Most of the strong Gu masters would choose to go to the sacred palace. The sacred palace was the central area of imperial court-blessed land. It was the essence of the blessed land. The sacred palace was one of the 4 resting chambers of Giant Sun Immortal Venerable. It was also his most important resting chamber. His other chambers were in Eastern Sea, Western Desert, and Southern Border. In Central Continent, Giant Sun Immortal Venerable had an even larger and grander resting chamber in the sky. It was situated within Longevity Heaven. In history, there were 10 rank 9 Gu Masters, known as Immortal Venerable and Demon Venerable. These 10 existed across the long river of time. From the immemorial Antiquity era to the remote Antiquity era, to the Olden Antiquity era, to the medieval Antiquity era, and finally, the late Antiquity era. Each one of them was the absolute expert of their time. They were unparalleled and invincible in the world. At the same time, they each had their specialties and unique abilities. They were all very different. The bloodthirsty spectral soul demon Venerable, the mysterious red lotus demon Venerable, the knowledgeable star constellation Immortal Venerable, the peaceful paradise earth Immortal Venerable. Similarly, Giant Sun Immortal Venerable was also a person full of legends and incredible stories. He was a demonic Pathgu masterborn of Northern Plains. He was always lucky and fortunate in his life, having lots of good events. Not only could he avoid dangers, he could even turn them into blessings. After he became a demonic Pathgu immortal, he was a Casanova and toyed with women everywhere. No one could restrain him. Even the #1 fairy of Spirit Affinity House in Central Continent back then, one of the top 10 sects, became his wife. Because of that, he became an external supreme elder of Spirit Affinity House and converted over to the righteous path. Giant Sun Immortal Venerable had a dissolute nature. After becoming an Immortal Venerable and ascending to the Immortal Court, he became the 4th generation Immortal King. He next built 5 great resting chambers and had over several tens of millions of concubines. He was extremely energetic. When he was 1,000 years old, he was still taking in young girls from all over the world to expand his harem. Thus, among all of the venerables, he had the most offsprings. He had too many children. He could not even remember most of their names. These children were spread all over the 5 regions. Right now, they were mostly concentrated in Northern Plains, and those Gu Master who had Giant Sun Immortal Venerable's bloodline were collectively known as the Huang Jin family. Women are like clothes while brothers are like our hands and feet. Hereditary monarchy. Beauty is the natural dowry of a woman. I wish I could marry every single woman in the world. All these were his catchphrases. Even though time flowed mercilessly and eras changed, he still left behind a dazzling proof of his glorious existence in history, especially in Northern Plains. Huang Jin family controlled nearly the entire region. Giant Sun Immortal Venerable was still influencing every generation thus far. Sacred Palace, the Central Control Hall, night. The silvery brilliant light shone on He Lulan's face. He raised his head as he looked at a plaque on the Central Control Hall. His giant bear-like body stood upright under the silver light. As the Alliance leader, with the Huang Jin bloodline flowing in him, once he entered Imperial Court Blessed Land, he would automatically arrive in the Sacred Palace. This plaque in the Central Control Hall was huge. It was 60 meters long, 25 meters wide, and there were 2 huge words on it: Hereditary Monarchy. The golden light shining off it was clear and dazzling. The Central Control Hall was huge and grand, like the house of a giant. Under this plaque, even He Lulan's fat body seemed tiny. Hereditary Monarchy, huh? He looked with a complicated expression. There was pain and hatred, admiration, anger, and aloofness. Lord. Cunning Gentleman Sun Shurhan came over, calling out softly, "What is the matter?" He Lulan turned around. His expression had been completely sealed away. He returned to his usual arrogant, boorish, and irritable attitude. Cunning Gentleman did not feel anything amiss as he took out a letter from his pocket, reporting, "This is Soul Blade General Pan Ping's letter." He said in the letter that Wolf King Chang Shan-in devoured an inheritance alone, extorting him in public and made very vile actions. He hopes Lord can seek justice for him. Oh. He Lulan stretched out his fat right arm. Cunning Gentleman quickly passed the letter to him with both hands. "Lord, I am not trying to be nosy, but this Chang Shan-in is getting more overbearing. He actually bullied and humiliated his own alliance mate." Sigh. Lord Pan Ping was too kind-hearted. He thought about old relationships and wanted to share an inheritance with Chang Shan-in. But the result was that he was treated like this. Wolf King Chang Shan-in has great merits indeed, but this does not mean he can act as he wish. Otherwise, if everyone was like him, wouldn't we be in complete chaos? Cunning Gentleman carefully chose his words while He Lulan was reading the letter. He Lulan snorted, stretching out his hand. "Hand it over." "Ah, Lord, you mean?" Cunning Gentleman was shocked. This is only Pan Ping's side of the story. Juz, I should have sent a letter too. He Lu Lan had a sharp gaze. Cunning gentleman quickly laughed. Lord is truly wise and mighty. I am in complete awe. He Lu Lan took the second letter and swept through the content. He was expressionless, and Sun Shi Han could not read his intentions at all. This letter was merely Zhu Zai seeking credit for his actions, combined with the first letter. He Lu Lan understood what had happened. He squeezed with his hand, and the two letters were corroded into nothingness by a dark light. After Pan Ping and the others arrive, go to the supply camp and give them some compensation. He Lu Lan instructed. Yes, Lord. Cunning gentleman bowed, but after a while, he raised his head in confusion as He Lu Lan did not speak further. Are we not punishing that Wolf King Chang Shanin? Punish? What a joke. He Lu Lan laughed. Why do I need to punish him? If it was me, I would have done the same time. Except I would not do it in such an ugly way. Sun Shi Han was indignant, urging, Lord, I am different opinions. This Wolf King Chang Shanin regards himself highly and is untamable. We cannot tolerate his actions. Although he has great achievements, without Lord's tribe funding him, would he have such a huge wolf group? He is a Northern Plains hero. He has great reputation. If Lord does not punish him, he is just going to become more overbearing. In fact, he might even overthrow you, and in the end, everyone would know the name of Chang Shanin, but not Lord's name. Haha. Lord, why are you laughing? Shi Han, you're overthinking it. After this happened, what reputation would Chang Shanin still have? Bullying the weak because he is strong, greedily taking an inheritance for himself, it would ruin his reputation. Furthermore, he does not have the Huang Jin bloodline. Without a guest token, he cannot enter the True Yang building. After pausing for a while, He Lu Lan continued, From this matter, we can see that Chang Shanin is only a mortal. He has desires and greed that makes things easy. Moreover, I have Chang tribe and Ge tribe in my hands now. He is already ranked 5 peak stage. Such a genius like him would definitely want to progress further. But I will only reveal to him the method to reach Gu Immortal Realm after he joins He tribe. I know you hate Chang Shanin, but later, I still need him when challenging True Yang building. Do not bother me in the future with such tiny matters. Do you understand? Yes, Lord. Cunning gentleman lowered his head, his voice slightly trembling. You may leave. This subordinate takes his leave. Sun Shi Han brought his disappointment with him as he left the central control hall. Chibi General, I wish I could marry every single woman in the world, including his children. Chapter 553, Imperial Court Sacred Palace. The wind was blowing past the ears. In the golden sky, brilliant rays were shining down. The Azure Wolf group moved in the sky as Fang Yuan rode the Azure Wolf King, allowing the wind to blow his hair backwards. His gaze was solemn. He was pondering internally. These days, he had been trying to decipher the quote from Dichio Inheritance, but he was making no progress. A glorious palace gradually appeared in his vision, emerging from the plain horizon. Sensing this, Fang Yuan looked over as he swept the scattered thoughts in his mind away. A trace of relief flashed past his face. Sacred Palace, he was finally there. As Fang Yuan got closer, the large palace slowly showed its full features. It had 8 levels. Each was about 2 kilometers tall. The first level, which was the bottom level, had the greatest surface area. The second level was above the first level, and so on. Each level had walls around it, forming a hollow tube. The snow-white walls were 9 meters thick. The walls were joined together with no gaps. On the walls, there were rainbow colors towers at set intervals. Each tower had different colors: red, orange, yellow, green, azure, blue, purple, respectively. After many levels were stacked together, the entire sacred palace looked like a tall mountain. As Fang Yuan got closer, it was as if the sacred palace was rising from the ground, shooting up and piercing the heavens. Grand and spectacular, the sacred palace. Even with Fang Yuan's depth of knowledge, he was gasping in admiration when he saw this. What's that thing flying in the sky? Wolf King has arrived. Just like what the information said, that should be the Azure Wolf group. Fang Yuan's arrival attracted the attention of the Gu masters inside the sacred palace. At this point, there were almost 10,000 people in the sacred palace. These people were lucky. After entering the blessed land, they landed close to the sacred palace. Thus, they were earlier than Fang Yuan. He Lu Lan had given instructed already, thus the Gu master tasked to welcome him quickly reacted. When Fang Yuan landed, there were already people standing at the huge gate of the first level. The moment Fang Yuan's myriad Wolf King touched the ground, the escort Gu master came to greet him. Lord Wolf King, you have arrived. It is my honor to bring you into the city. Your place's residence is on the 8th level. We have already prepared the room for you. No rush. Bring me around the place first. Fang Yuan said lightly, getting off the Azure Wolf. As a form of respect to Giant Sun Immortal Venerable, Gu Masters were not allowed to ride their steed inside the sacred palace. They could only walk. As you wish, Lord. This is my honor. Fang Yuan followed the escort Gu into the sacred palace. Inside the sacred palace, there were large numbers of pavilions and terraces, palaces and courtyards. Looking from outside, the edges of the roof were curved outside. They were silver and golden in color, looking magnificent and grand. All sorts of buildings were interconnected. At some places, there was lots of free space and buildings were huge. At some places, the pathways were intercrossed and halls were everywhere, making it easy to get lost. As for the interior of the pavilion hall, be it the pillars or the main support, they were carved with lots of beautiful images and decorations. It radiated an aura of prosperity. Lord, this is Entertainment Palace. The noble ancestor Giant Sun would hold a grand music festival here in this palace daily when he lived here. According to history, during each festival, there would be large numbers of concubines fighting to present their dance in order to get ancestor Giant Sun's attention. Lord, this is Spring Soup Hall. It has the largest hot spring in Northern Plains. Ancestor Giant Sun would come here weekly with 1,000 concubines to soak in the water and have fun. This is Floating Scent Yard. Ancestor Giant Sun had once moved the legendary wine pool and meat forest here. Every morning, the meat forest would produce all sorts of delicious meat fruits. At night, the wine pool would produce lots of fragrant wine. The escort Gu Master introduced each area they went to. He was very eloquent. Fang Yuan walked casually, looking around. He found it very interesting. The sacred palace's 4th level. The escort Gu Master brought Fang Yuan into the main palace. Lord, this is one of the 8 main palaces of Sacred Palace, Drawing Palace. Ancestor Giant Sun was very talented. He was very skilled at drawing beauties. All of the drawings inside this palace were done by him alone. Please come this way. The escort Gu Master opened the side door of the palace, inviting Fang Yuan in. The 8 main palaces of Sacred Palace had main doors, but only Giant Sun Immortal Venerable could use them. Although he was dead already, this rule was passed down, and his descendants followed this rule as a form of respect and reverence towards Giant Sun Immortal Venerable. Once they entered the palace, a large wall of drawings filled Fang Yuan's vision. There were nothing in this drawing palace but huge walls. On these walls, there were all sorts of beauties, alluring ones, innocent ones, smiling ones, or those deep in thought. They were in all sorts of postures and positions. There were 80,000 drawings. Those that were drawn here were well liked by Ancestor Giant Sun for a period of time. Of course, it is a woman's greatest honor to be hand-drawn by a venerable. Ancestor Giant Sun had lots of concubines, but those recorded here were the cream of the crop. They could be preserved eternally here. The escort Gu Master said with a look of admiration. Fang Yuan did not speak. He only looked and thought to himself, I wouldn't call this eternally. At least in my previous 500 years, Imperial Court Blessed Land was destroyed by Central Continent Gu Immortals, and the Sacred Palace became history. Sigh, true immortality is something that not even someone as strong as an immortal venerable could achieve. When people came here, they would be stunned by the Sacred Palace's grand and imposing aura, even if they were not overwhelmed. They would feel great admiration, but Fang Yuan could sense a trace of decay and rot in this brilliance. Without eternal life, so what if you were as strong as a venerable? Even the Casanova Giant Sun had turned into ashes now. His traces were still here, proving his existence, but in Fang Yuan's opinion, such a proof was filled with the mockery of failure. It was truly pitiful. His interest had waned. Let's go. Bring me to the 8th level's accommodation. Fang Yuan sighed. Instruction. The escort Gu Master got out of his daze and said hesitantly, But Lord, Sacred Palace has a lot of famous sites. We just started. Other than these, there are also Beauty Palace, Young Girl Palace, Alluring Palace, Innocent Palace, and Unique Scent Palace. Back then, female variant humans lived there. There were even hairy men. There is also Jade Statue Palace, meant to sculpt beauties and offer them to the ancestor. The escort Gu Master was anxious. All these places that he mentioned were not accessible with his status. He wanted to use this chance to satisfy his curiosity. But Fang Yuan did not fulfill his wish. During Giant Sun Immortal Venerable's final years, he rarely went to the mortal realm to stay in Sacred Palace. He lived in longevity heaven, in a reclusive manner. As for Northern Plains, Large numbers of girls would be chosen for him to fill the sacred palace. The last time Giant Sun Immortal Venerable came to the sacred palace, he did not meet these girls. Instead, he built the 88 True Young building and established the rules for the imperial court contest before vanishing from this world completely. The sacred palace thus faded out of history, and those beautiful yet pitiful women became sparrows trapped in cages. Although imperial court blessed land was huge, it had no freedom. It was a prison even though the place was large. Eventually, they stayed there obediently and exhausted their lifespan. They could not escape, and no one had the guts to save them either. Under Giant Sun Immortal Venerable's glorious and noble light, countless women were buried in pain, grudge, and sadness. In Fang Yuan's eyes, the sacred palace did not have high value. It was merely Giant Sun Immortal Venerable's inheritance. No Gu masters dared to set up their inheritance here. As for the precious resources he left behind, they had been taken by previous generations of Gu masters already. Even the central continent Gu immortals who came later could not find anything valuable. The only thing valuable in the sacred palace was also the entire imperial court blessed land. No, more accurately, the most valuable thing in Northern Plains. That was at the peak of the 8th level, 88 True Young building. As Giant Sun Immortal Venerable had suggested, the Gu housemaid by long-hair ancestor personally. Rank 8 Immortal Gu. But now was not the time. At the peak of the 8th level. It was complete emptiness. Only when the 10-year blizzard strike would the 88 True Young building show up. In the following days, Fang Yuan lived in seclusion, cultivating as he waited for True Young building to open. The Azure Wolf group was taken care of by others. He did not need to bother with it. During this period, He Lulan sent people to invite him, and revealed the intention to recruit him. To join He tribe and become an external elder. Towards this suggestion, Fang Yuan said he needed to consider it. Although he showed a moved expression, he would definitely refuse this in his heart. Human skin Gu could disguise him as Wolf King, but it was immortal Gu. The investigation of an immortal Gu could expose him. The recruitment of external elders was a common trick used by Northern Plains super forces. This way, demonic path Gu immortals could become righteous, and it would help the Huang Jin tribes greatly in managing Northern Plains. As for the incident on Xingjiu Peak, He Lulan did not mention a word about it. There was a rumor growing, however, that Wolf King was extremely overbearing, describing his actions on Xingjiu Peak as vile and evil, using his strength to suppress the weak. The description was extremely biased, but it sounded very convincing. Fang Yuan laughed in his heart. Someone was obviously trying to ruin his reputation behind the scenes. It is likely to be Pan Ping or Sun Shi-Han who has motives to do this, or even He Lulan. But so what if my reputation turns sour? Back then, Giant Sun Immortal Venerable had a terrible reputation. He was a demonic Gu master who toyed with women all over the region. But now, he was a revered Immortal Venerable. When he expanded his harem, how many women's lives and happiness were ruined by him? But now, no one publicly accused him of anything. In this world, strength was everything. On Earth, one had to be mindful of rumors. It was easy to ruin a person's life with some malicious lies. But that was because they were all mortals. The laws of the world was different. Individuals could not surpass the power of society. But here, it was different. That was one of the reasons why Fang Yuan loved this world. Half a month later, there was a water-like ripple in the golden sky. The entire land started shaking. Out of nowhere, there was wind as a piercing light shone at the peak of the sacred palace. The light lasted for 45 minutes as it gradually dispersed. A tower appeared at a previously barren area. 88 True Young building. Chibi General Unique sent palace, female hairy men. Giant Sun is truly a man of culture. Chapter 554. Plotting is difficult. Living is tough. It was a tower, like a spring bamboo shoot. It was tall and slender and was upright. The tower's shape was vague with all kinds of gorgeous colors, like a body of colorful ink in the shape of a tower as it continually shook. This is the initial appearance of 88 True Young building, and only when the storm and snow covers the northern plains, and all the small towers of Imperial Court blessed land sink to the ground, will each layer of 88 True Young building stabilize. Only then can one enter inside and explore. Fang Yuan stood at the entrance of his residence and looked to the direction of the dome. At this moment, there were shouts of jubilation and surprise in Sacred Palace. Gu masters were cheering in high spirits while many mortals kneeled on the ground, praising the might of Giant Sun Immortal Venerable. But even when 88 True Young building takes form completely, I won't be able to enter because I am not a descendant of giant son immortal venerable and don't have his bloodline. If I want to enter inside, I would need He Lu Lan to get me a guest token. Well, there is no hurry. Is True Young building so easy to rush into? He Lu Lan will need external help like me sooner or later. After a while, Fang Yuan retracted his gaze and walked back to his room. As the door of the room closed, the sound of cheers from the outside immediately softened. Fang Yuan entered a secret room specially meant for cultivation and sat upright on a cushion. Both of my apertures have now already reached rank 5 peak stage. In regards to enslavement path, I have Azure Wolf Group, while with regards to strength path, I have Killer Move 4-Arm Wind King. Combined with my battle experience, I am already at the peak among the mortals. But to deal with a Gu immortal, Fang Yuan's brows slowly started to furrow. He was well aware of the enormous gap between a mortal and mortal. A mortal going against an immortal was as hard as ascending to heaven. To him, the best situation right now would be Tai by Yunxing already having the recipe for a mortal Gu landscape as before in his mind. It would not have been good for Fang Yuan to make a move outside in northern plains, but it would be very convenient for him to do so in 88. True Young building. Using Gu to plunder river as before and mountain as before Gu from Tai by Yunxing, and then plunder the immortal Gu recipe from his mind. With such ample conditions, Fang Yuan could jump out of the chessboard and directly kill Tai by Yunxing, who had yet to become an immortal, and then use the third refinement opportunity to request Lang Yalan's spirit to refine landscape as before Gu. However, the possibility of Tai by Yunxing, immortal, possessing the immortal Gu recipe of landscape as before was next to nothing. Moreover, according to the vague rumors in his previous life, when Tai by Yunxin became a Gu immortal, heaven and earth reacted and Dao marks attracted each other, making the two rank 5 Gu spontaneously merge together to form rank 6 immortal Gu landscape as before. Fang Yuan had a prudent nature and would never place all his hopes on an indistinct future. If the situation is messed up, then I will have to deal with the Gu immortal Tai by Yunxing. At that time, I can only rely on myself. Azure Wolf Group and 4-Arm Wind King clearly won't be enough. Fang Yuan's strength was already at the peak among mortals. Despite cultivation of both enslavement and strength path having the greatest unresolved issue, he was still among the first class of rank 5 experts. If compared to Southern Border, he was in the same level as Shang Clan's Genius Clan leader Shang Yin Fei and Wu Clan leader Empress Wu Ji. Using the experiences of his past lives, the advantage of rebirth and taking a series of risks, struggling at death's door several times, Fang Yuan achieved such rapid growth that it would shock the world. But, even so, in front of a Gu immortal, even if it was a newly advanced Gu immortal, this strength was not enough. To resolve this huge issue, there are only about 3 ways. First is to search 88 True Young building for the strongest Gu worms or unique methods. Second is to secretly make arrangements against Tai by Yunxing as much as possible so that there will be ample preparation when I have to truly make a move. Third is to resolve the problem of enslavement and strength dual cultivation and raise my battle strength further. Fang Yuan silently pondered. He was fully aware that he had exhausted almost all his previous life's foundation in creating 4-Arm Wind King. After all, he had specialized in blood path in his previous life and had only dabbled in enslavement and strength paths. The so-called plots and traps against Gu immortals were too inferior to be even mentioned and were not reliable. Fang Yuan had advanced to Gu immortal in his previous life, thus he knew when a mortal transformed to a Gu immortal, from their head to toe, inside to outside, they would go through baptism, and even their appearance would change. The only thing that he could truly place high hopes on was 88 True Young building. Days passed by. The golden light and silver light in the sky continued to switch between one another. 88 True Young building was still gradually forming. Its sunset hues gradually rose and covered most of the sacred palace in its light. Cool wind breezed through imperial court blessed land with birds singing and the fragrance of flowers filling the air. But at the outside world in northern plains, snow had continued to fall for over a month already. Blizzard was spreading over the northern plains in full force with its bone-chilling cold wind and snow. Both the sky and ground were a scene of white, and mist covered one's vision. Trees had already started dying and were frozen into pillars of ice. Mounds and hills were covered with thick layers of snow, and large piles had formed in valleys as well. Beast groups died in large numbers, and even weeds with vigorous life force were also frozen into ice. Even when one spat, the saliva would instantly turn into ice. But heaven never blocked all paths. Somehow, there would always be a trace of hope left. In each region of northern plains, there were remnants of tribes. Some were small and some big, and relying on geographically advantageous places like Warm Pond Valley, they were able to resist the wind and snow and survive in the blizzard. Man tribe who occupied Hong Yin Valley was one of them. Hall of Affairs. The elders divided into 2 rows with Man tribe leaders sitting high at the main seat. Rank 3 external elder Sherwu kneeled on the ground. Lord tribe leader, I come forward to beg for forgiveness. Oh, what is your fault? Man 2 asked with a slight smile. Reporting to Lord tribe leader, I was in charge of looking after Spirit Spring D, but it suddenly froze and dried up yesterday. It is now ruined. Sherwu respectfully replied. He, not a problem. Man 2 lightly waved his hand. As a matter of fact, he had already known this news. Elder Sherwu, stand up. It is the 10-year disaster now. There is a chance of every Spirit Spring suddenly freezing and drying up. This is not your fault. Lord tribe leader's kindness knows no bounds. I am ashamed. Sherwu was moved to tears and sighed inwardly. His surname was Sher and was half an outsider to Man tribe. Although he had married into Man tribe, but he had still been pushed aside. A problem occurred in the Spirit Spring he had been put in charge of. This matter could have been big or small. Fortunately, this generation's Man tribe leader was open-minded and did not look into it. However, anything concerning Spirit Springs are major affairs of the tribe. Man Duo, how many Spirit Springs do we have left now? Man 2's brows slightly furrowed as he asked. Man Duo was Man 2's 3rd son, thin and small in physique but was shrewd and crafty, and had been assisting Man 2 in handling internal affairs of the tribe till now. He immediately replied, Lord Father, Hong Yin Valley now still has 7 Spirit Springs marked A, B, C, E, F, G, and H. Among them, G and H Spirit Springs are already close to drying up and will only last less than a month. All right. Man 2 nodded. That is to say, a month later, we will only have 5 Spirit Springs. Elders, what do you think? Lord tribe leader, this thing is very difficult to deal with. This is a natural disaster. It is almost impossible for humans to reverse the situation. We might as well cut down on the primeval stones given to Gu masters. Hong Yin Valley's 8 Spirit Springs were accumulated bitterly over these 10 years by our tribe. The situation of our tribe this year is much better than the previous times. It is all thanks to Lord tribe leader's wise guidance that we don't need to worry. Other tribes are in a much more worse situation. Even if all the Spirit Springs dry up, it won't be much problem. Wait till this 10-year snow disaster passes, and at that time, new Spirit Springs will emerge one after another, when fortune arises after extreme suffering. Elders expressed their thoughts one after another. Man 2 calmly listened to them and nodded. Spirit Springs are very important for a Gu master's cultivation and cannot be neglected. It is difficult for a Gu master's cultivation to progress without primeval stones. The blizzard has just started. Snow monsters will start roaming about soon. The main defense of the Hong Yin Valley will still rely on Gu masters. He paused before mumbling. Let's do it like this. Take out 1 spring egg Gu from the tribe warehouse and plant it. This new Spirit Spring shall be titled the Lord Tribe Leader. Spring egg Gu is a rank 5 Gu. An elder objected in heartache. Man 2 raised his brows. So what if it is a rank 5 Gu? You all know that only with a Spirit Spring's supply of primeval stones can our tribe's Gu masters advance forward continually. They can then preserve their strength and prepare themselves when resisting snow monsters. As long as there is not a huge loss of our Gu masters, our tribe can preserve its strength. And when the blizzard passes and spring blossoms, it will be time for our tribe to realize our ambitions. Realize our ambitions. The elder's eyes brightened at these words. Man 2 had been putting all his efforts in developing the tribe, and under his leadership, Man tribe had continually expanded and swallowed many small tribes over these years. Now, Man tribe was occupying Hong Yin Valley. It could already be said to be a ruler of a region. But from his words, everyone could hear this Man tribe leader still wanted to progress further. The current Man tribe was still not able to satisfy his ambitions. The elder who had objected quickly apologized. Lord tribe leader is wise and resolute. I am willing to lay down my life at tribe leader's command. We are willing to give our lives for tribe leader. Soon after, the other elders spoke together. Having everyone with me, we can seek supremacy. Man 2 laughed loudly, then his expression concentrated and he ordered, Elder Sherwu will be in charge of the new Spirit Spring D. Everyone present gazed at Sherwu with envy. Looking after a Spirit Spring was a lucrative job. Sherwu was truly moved this time. His eyes reddened as he said, I am fortunate to have tribe leaders' trust. I will definitely do my best to repay the tribe. The discussions continued for a while longer before everyone dispersed. Sherwu did not leave, instead following Manduo to the tribe warehouse and took a spring egg goo. This is spring egg goo? Sherwu held the goo in his hand and gazed at it strangely, his tone trembling. His expression quickly concentrated, and he then bowed towards Manduo. Third young master, please enlighten me on how to activate this goo. Manduo smiled as he saw Sherwu adapting to circumstances. I do not dare to give you advice. This spring egg goo is a rank 5 goo and has extremely high demand on primeval essence. Even a rank 5 middle stage goo master cannot activate it at one try. Elder Sherwu, you have a rank 3 cultivation, and as such you would need to use lasting goo and continuing goo to activate it. But this way, the quickest it will take for you to plant the spirit spring is close to a month. Elder, you don't need to worry. I will help you by the side during this time. I am very grateful, the third young master. Sherwu promptly expressed his thanks. Chibi General living is tough indeed, feels bad man. Chapter 555, Dancing Snow Claws, Appearance of the Building. The location to create the spirit spring had already been decided. Sherwu brought the spring egg goo and went with Manduo. After making the preparations, he started using his primeval essence and sent it into the lasting goo and continuing goo before injecting it into the spring egg goo. The spring egg goo floated in the air, absorbing primeval essence as it moved up and down slowly. For the next 18 days, Sherwu slept 3 hours a day, rushing to eat his meals and settle his excretion. Although it was tough, the effects were showing that as he continued to inject primeval essence, the spring egg goo was shining with a brilliant light. These days, Manduo had come to inspect again, and upon seeing this, he was overjoyed. We are almost there. There are mild cracks on the spring egg goo already. Once it breaks, we will succeed. It has been tough on Elder Sherwu. Not at all, not at all. Sherwu refined the goo while humbly replying he was mentally fatigued. His body had gotten thinner. With his cultivation, forcefully activating a rank 5 goo was very tiring. But if he succeeded, it would be a huge service to the tribe. Manduo continued. During this elder meeting, Lord Father had specially mentioned it. Lord Sherwu's hard work is evident in everyone's eyes. If you have any requests, we will try to satisfy it. Sherwu was extremely grateful. I am ashamed. With Lord Tribe Leader's care, how can I go overboard and request for more? But I have a question. Oh, please speak. Young Master Manduo, I feel that Hongyin Valley had been getting colder these days. The surrounding vegetation and beasts have been freezing to death. Manduo's expression turned ugly. Hongyin Valley was indeed facing a problem. It had been mentioned during the last few tribe meetings. The result was, the underground magma supporting Hongyin Valley had been reduced due to unknown reasons. This was different from historical records. In the earlier meeting, tribe leader Mantu flew into a rage, wanting everyone to think of a solution. At the same time, they had to conceal this matter to prevent their morale from sinking. Elder Sherwu is at a crucial moment of refining the spirit spring. I should not tell him this bad news, or his mind will waver and ruin this important matter. Thinking so, Manduo lied and reassured Sherwu. Sherwu did not sense anything wrong. He was about to speak, but suddenly, his expression changed, shouting, "Oh no, it's the flying hand snow." Manduo turned around and was shocked. How can there be flying hand snow in Hongyin Valley? Only to see that in the sky, fierce winds were blowing as palm-sized snowflakes carrying the aura of rank 5 goo descended slowly. "Oh no, come quickly and protect the spring egg goo," Manduo shouted, calling the nearby goo masters over. But the blizzard was powerful, the wind cut like razors, and the might of heaven and earth descended. After resisting it for a while, everyone starting to fall into a disadvantage. Snow monster. Snow monsters have appeared. Trouble comes in pairs. The blizzard gathered and formed into a 6-meter-tall snow monster. The defense of the goo masters was easily broken. In the sky, large numbers of flying hand snow gathered into a huge palm. Under everyone's furious and indignant, while completely helpless stares, the giant snow hand grabbed the spring egg goo in the air and squeezed. Crack! With a light sound, the snow hand disintegrated. The snowflakes landed on the ground. The rank 5 spring egg goo inside had vanished already. The silver light shone like a miasma gently raining down on Imperial Court blessed land. Howl howl. Azure wolf groups sprinted on the ground. Some ran in the air, while others were dashing with their claws. Even though there were Gu masters feeding them in the sacred palace, these wolves still desired freedom. They wanted to be ferocious beasts roaming the sky, and not canaries trapped in cages that as their master. Fang Yuan let them do as they wished. He himself was spreading his eagle wings as he flew in the sky. Looking at the ground below him, it was Di Chio inheritance. Light in the soil, shine up to 100,000 feet high, swimming in the sky for 100 li, praising plum fragrant snow. What does this sentence mean? Fang Yuan pondered. He had been coming over to explore the inheritance grounds every few days. Instinct told him that this Di Chio inheritance was not simple. Thus, every time he went out, he used the excuse of walking his wolves to train them and practice his manipulation skills. But even so, he could not stay for long. Fang Yuan was now a person with high status, second to only He Lulan. His every movement was scrutinized by everyone. He was no longer as invisible as before. This time, he had no findings, and to prevent suspicion, he could only leave for now. Even though he could completely occupy this entire area using his status now, Fang Yuan did not do that if this inheritance had high value. Even if he had great strength, others would compete with him. He did not have Huang Jin bloodline. To enter 88 True Yang building, he needed He Lulan's guest token. However, he had been sending people to scout the area. The reason was naturally the Azure Wolf Group. Every time he went out to hunt with the Azure Wolf Group, there would be a route. Before moving out, he would send Gu masters to scout out the path for him and go to the path that had the most prey. There were 5 to 6 routes to choose from each time, but each one of them would be close to Di Chio inheritance. One must act flawlessly. Fang Yuan followed the route that he planned and continued hunting with the Azure Wolf Group. There were a lot of beasts and resources inside Imperial Court Blessed Land. Especially near the small towers, there were swarms of worms and countless wild Gu. 88 True Yang building was something only a small number of Gu masters had the chance to enter. Most Gu masters would roam in the huge Blessed Land, subdue wild Gu, or find inheritances. Fang Yuan followed the trail and found many Gu masters. They asked for the area near Di Chio inheritance. There were naturally many Gu masters passing by. Fang Yuan was not afraid that Di Chio Mountain would get taken by someone. In fact, he was hoping that someone would find it and trigger it. He would get news of it by then and would be able to strike easily. After all, he had already used his strength to snatch an inheritance back on Shingjiu Peak. Rumble, rumble. There were some loud sounds coming from the ground. Fang Yuan rode the Azure Myriad Wolf King and looked down, seeing a small tower shining with a bright light, sinking into the ground slowly. Fang Yuan was not surprised in the progress of 88 True Yang buildings' gradually appearance. The small towers in Imperial Court Blessed Land would slowly sink into the ground. These small towers were like nests that were filled with all the wild Gu that had grown in the last 10 years. Many people guessed the wild Gu in these small towers were the energy source to form 88 True Yang building. In a way, these small towers were a portion of the 88 True Yang building. This guest had never gotten confirmation that GU immortals who could confirm this were unable to enter Imperial Court Blessed Land. And those mortals who could enter were way too weak compared to Giant Sun Immortal Venerable. They could not decipher it, but Fang Yuan was an exception. 88 True Yang building has an intriguing design. It is truly a work of heaven. These small towers are indeed a portion of True Yang building. Fang Yuan was far more knowledgeable than other Gu immortals in this aspect, because he controlled the most complete information regarding 88 True Yang building. This source of information was Langya Land Spirit. The land spirit in his life was the rank 8 Gu immortal long-hair ancestor who created the 88 True Yang building. Wait. Fang Yuan's body shook. A flash of inspiration appeared in his heart, sweeping away the confusion in his heart. This moment, he finally found the strange thing about Di Chio. There was no small tower near Di Chio. Indeed, that is the case. Fang Yuan's eyes shone with brilliance. In the last few times he brought the Azure Wolves to hunt, he would either be in the sky near Di Chio or the ground near it. Now that he recalled it, he realized the peculiarity of Di Chio. By logic, every 8 li should have a small tower. and every small tower corresponds to the regions in northern plains. But near Dichio, there is nothing. Thinking so, Fang Yuan got excited. This was a huge breakthrough. Following this lead, he could potentially unravel the mystery of Dichio inheritance. But Fang Yuan did not turn back. Rushing over in an excited manner like this was asking to be suspected. He controlled his excited emotions and continued on the route he had prepared. The Azure Wolves moved out from the sacred palace, and after one round, returned. The sacred palace was like a mountain peak. The 88 True Yang building at its peak was still nurturing. The aurora it emitted was covering the entire sacred palace. The grand and beautiful sacred palace was shrouded in a mysterious and powerful aura. Fang Yuan went out to hunt every 6 or 7 days with the Azure Wolf group. But plans cannot keep up with circumstances. 3 days later, the aurora gathered into one point and started taking form. The first layer of 88 True Yang building had formed. This was a joyful news, causing the sacred palace to go into a commotion. At once, everyone's hot topic was about this building. Of course, most of the Gu masters could only watch. He Lulan went in excitedly. Several hours later, he returned in a pathetic state, wounds covering his body. His injuries were not light, but they could not conceal the shock in his eyes. During the second expedition, he brought many He tribe Gu masters. He tribesmen had the bloodline of Giant Sun, immortal venerable. They could freely enter and exit True Yang building without restriction. During such times, tribesmen were the most reliable. Why was there a need to share with outsiders what one could devour alone? When He Lulan returned, he looked extremely tired. As for the Gu masters who went in, only 60% returned. Thereafter, all sorts of rumors and information spread. They were all regarding True Yang building. Some said that the True Yang building was a work of heaven. It was spectacular. Some said that it was difficult to explore. Every step was precarious. Some said that the rewards for passing it was very enticing. By now, everyone was moved. Chibi General, it's like when your game has a new update, and you try hard solo and G the boss alone.